Honorable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in Thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and that good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, I received a message from the President when we were on the short break, but I think it's proper I bring the contents to your notice. The message is dated 12 February 2021, and it says, Mr. Speaker, absence from Ghana. In accordance with Article 59 of the Constitution, I write to inform you that in my capacity of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, I will be traveling outside the country on Monday, 15 February 2021, at the invitation of His Excellency Mr. Mahmoud Ould Sheikh El Ghazani, the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and current Chair of the G5 Sahel, to attend the 7th Ordinary Session of the GS Sahel Heads of State Conference in N'Djamena, Republic of Chad. I will return to Ghana in the evening of Monday, 15 February 2021. During my absence, the Vice President, Alai Dr. Mahmoud Baumia Shah, in accordance with Article 60 Clause 8 of the Constitution, act in my stead. Accept, Mr. Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely and warm regards, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Honorable members, I think it's proper I read a formal communication in welcoming you all back to the House after a short break, and trust that during the period you had some rest and also observed all the COVID-19 protocols for your safety and the safety of your families and loved ones. You would recall that on Tuesday, 9 February 2021, in consultation with leadership, I adjourned the House for 3 weeks from Wednesday, 10 February 2021 to Tuesday, 2nd March 2021, following the upsurge of the COVID-19 infections in Parliament after the testing conducted by the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. I also entreated members and staff to strictly comply with the COVID-19 protocols and resubmit themselves for further testing prior to the resumption of the House. During this period, Parliament was to continue with the weekly disinfection and sanitization of the premises and presence of the House. Honorable members, please, will you be quiet? Honorable members and staff who tested positive for the virus were made to self-isolate while receiving treatment. As part of the measures to control the possible spread of the virus, I directed the clerk to request a number of the auxiliary staff of the parliamentary service to take their leave in order to help decongest the office. Honorable members, I am happy to inform you that just before we embarked on the induction ceremony for continuing members of Parliament, which ended on Monday, 1st March 2021, I again directed the clerk to arrange with the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research for further retesting of honorable members and staff who earlier tested negative to the virus. This was to confirm the COVID-19 status of honorable members and staff currently within the presence of Parliament. The retesting revealed that out of a total of 550 MPs and staff who retested, only 12 tested positive and are currently in isolation. Majority of them were auxiliary staff. This represents a positivity rate of 2%, which compares favorably with the national positivity rate of between 10 to 12%. It is my expectation that all honorable members and staff who are required to retest actually do submit themselves for the testing. As shown by the results of the retesting, the measures we put in place, including the 3-week break, have enabled our colleagues who were exposed to the virus to overcome the infection. For those of us who were not so exposed, it has been an opportunity for us to reassure ourselves of our status. As we resume today, I believe we will all endeavor to adhere to the time-tested protocols that the COVID-19 pandemic requires of all of us. Let us wear our nose masks religiously. Let us wash our hands at the least opportunity we get whilst we are in the office. Let sanitizers be our companion ourselves and let's maintain social distance as much as possible. Let me assure this House and the good people of Ghana that Parliament will not just adhere to the COVID-19 protocols, but will also adopt proactive measures that will ensure the safety of this House and all who are required to engage with Parliament in furtherance of the development of this country. Honourable members, following the safe delivery of the COVID-19 vaccines to the country, I, in consultation with the leadership of this House, will soon announce a rollout plan for Parliament towards the vaccination of honourable members and staff of the House. I believe honourable members will be supportive in this regard. At the moment, the House is expecting the presentation of reports of the applicant on the nominations of His Excellency the President for ministerial appointments. I believe the House would consider with expedition the reports of the Appointments Committee within the next few days to facilitate government business. During this meeting, the House will also be privileged to receive His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is obligated by Article 67 of the Constitution to deliver to Parliament a message on the state of the nation at the beginning of each session of Parliament and before a dissolution of Parliament. His Excellency has given an indication to me that he is ready to meet the obligation on Tuesday, 9th March 2021. Still within this meeting, in accordance with Article 179 of the Constitution, His Excellency has given further indication that he is caused to be prepared and is ready to be presented and laid before this House the budget for the 2021 financial year on Friday, 12 March 2021, consideration and approval. Honourable members will therefore note that we have a rather tall order of business for consideration before the end of the meeting at the close of March 31st, 2021. I humbly entreat all of you to cooperate fully with me and leadership in this regard. Honourable members, with a heavy heart, I end my formal communication to you on a sad note. I have to acknowledge the passing away of one of the foundation members of the Parliament of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, the smiling, lively, and visible senior deputy clerk to Parliament, Mr. Robert Apodola. Mr. Robert Apodola is no more. The saddest during that period that we were on the short break, he had not been well and got admitted at the Kolibu Hospital. When leadership got hint of the deterioration situation of his health, leadership took a quick decision to seek further medical attention for him. Whilst arrangements were being made for a receiving health facility for his treatment, Mr. Apodola succumbed to his ailment and responded to the call of his maker. Members of this House, and staff of the parliamentary service are as traumatized as the widow, children, and family members. We have lost a parliamentary colossus. Under my guidance, leadership, and will soon inform the House of the final arrangements. I can only now just entreat all of you to rise and observe a minute silence in memory of our departed members, sir. May his soul and the souls of all faithful departed rest in perfect peace. Amen. Let me thank honorable members for your attention. We now move to item 3 on the order paper. Correction of votes and proceedings. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 14th sitting of the first meeting of the first session held on Tuesday, 9 February 2021 are adopted as the true records of proceedings. Item 4, business statement for the 7th week. Chairman, Business Committee.
Right Honourable Speaker, the Business Committee met today, Tuesday, the 2nd of March 2021, and arranged business of the House for the 7th week ending Friday, the 5th of March 2021. The Speaker, the committee accordingly submits its report as follows. Right Honourable Speaker, you may read any available communication to the House. Speaker, you may also admit statements to be made in the House by honourable members in accordance with Order 72. Speaker, reports from committees may be presented to the House, be debated, and their consequential resolutions have been taken during the week. Speaker, the Business Committee takes this opportunity to welcome all honourable members back from the short break that ensued from the suspension of the meeting that you did. Let's hope that all members endeavour during the break to observe the COVID-19 protocols and therefore are in good health to discharge their mandate as members of Parliament. The Speaker, during the period from now on until the House adjourns sine die on the 30th of March 2021, the House will be expected to consider some very critical businesses, including one, as you said, the consideration and approval of nominees of His Excellency the President for ministerial appointments. Speaker, we'll also be receiving the President to deliver the message on the state of the nation on Tuesday, the 9th of March, as you have related to, and consequently debate the message. Speaker, the message will be debated the 10th and 11th of November, and in that regard, Speaker, it may become important for us to have early sittings so that to debate the state of the nation for 2 days we'll have enough time. What it means is that we may have to sit at 10 and extend the sittings to at least 5, 6 every day. That is between Wednesday and Thursday. Speaker, the budget statement and financial policy, the budget statement and economic policy of Government of Ghana for the year ending 31st December 2021 would also be presented in the House to the general public on Friday, the 12th. The Speaker, as we have discussed, the members, identified members, including in particular Chairman, Vice Chairman, ranking and Vice ranking or Deputy ranking members, will be required to be taken through a post-budget orientation or workshop beginning same evening of the 12th, and when we return on Monday to consider to begin the debate of the principles of the budget from the ensuing Tuesday. That will, I guess, will be the 16th of March. Mr. Speaker, the sector allocations will be placed before the various sector committees, select committees as we call them, for consideration and recommendation to the House. It is hoped that by the 30th of March, the appropriation bill covering the budget would have been considered and approved by this House, in order for us to be able to take a well-deserved adjournment on the 30th of March, which will be a Tuesday, so that members traveling to outlying areas, including the minority leader, will be able to travel to their constituencies in order to join their people in the observation of the Good Friday beginning the 2nd of April. The Speaker, accordingly, our honourable members are entreated to arrange their affairs to enable them avail themselves for the discharge of all the constitutional obligations imposed on Parliament during this meeting. Right Honourable Speaker, the Minister-designate for Health is scheduled to brief the House, together with senior officials of the ministry, on the COVID-19 situation in the country, including the ongoing vaccination exercise. And I hope that after the briefing, and given the fact that the first and second gentlemen of the country have submitted themselves to the vaccination, the Right Honourable Speaker, as the third gentleman of the land, would lead Parliament, the people's representatives, to submit themselves to the program of the national vaccination. Mr. Speaker, you will lead that effort. I know you have you have an eternal fear for the application of syringes. Mr. Speaker, you may have to submit yourself and lead the rest of us to do so as the representatives of the people. Mr. Speaker, the briefing from the Minister-designate is programmed to take place tomorrow, Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2021. Accordingly, the Business Committee proposes that the House commences sitting at 10 a.m. tomorrow for the conduct of the scheduled business and drafter, recline into a committee of the whole. Speaker will rather recline into a joint caucus, not the briefing from the Minister-designate. Mr. Speaker, 10. Mr. Speaker, the chair gave a directive that a senior government official should be in the House for a briefing, and that would also be done tomorrow after the Minister of Health designate comes to brief the House on the vaccination program. So, honourable members should take note of the programs and avail themselves for the said briefings. The Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 106, subject to Standing Order 53, the Business Committee submits to this Honourable House the order in which the business of the House shall be taken during the week. The Speaker, the draft has been set out on the draft business statement before us, and I don't intend to go through everything. I hope members would have applied themselves, and then we know the program beginning today and ending Friday, the 5th of March. Mr. Speaker, thank you, and I so beg to.
Honourable members, you've heard the chairman of the Business Committee present the report. Any comments? Yes, Honourable Ablakwa.
Most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I commend the chairman of the Business Committee for the business statement. Mr. Speaker, I notice from the item number 3, as the Majority Leader eloquently espoused, we expect to receive the financial policy of the Government of Ghana for the year ending 2021. However, we have still not constituted committees, and the financial policy of government will require that the various committees that exercise oversight over the ministries, departments, and agencies are constituted in earnest to consider this important matter. I know that the last time the House discussed this matter before we took the 3 weeks break, there was some indication that perhaps we may have to wait for the new standing orders before the committees are constituted. But it will appear that we are now out of time, and we may just have to make do with the current standing orders. I do not know if this matter has been discussed at the level of leadership, and if we can expect committees to be constituted, as it is clear that the financial policy of the government is imminent. As for the message of the State of the Nation, we can debate it without commit work, but for the budget and financial policy statement, I don't see any way out. Committees must definitely be constituted. So I want to find out from the majority leader what the indication is, if we can expect the committees to be constituted as quickly as possible so that members can anticipate the financial policy of the government. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Haruna Idrisu.
Speaker, let me use this opportunity to also welcome you and wish you good health and long life, and to wish our colleagues good health and long life as we prepare to do what is expected of us as elected representatives of the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, just two observations. One is I referred to the votes and proceedings, and you took some decision and communicated to the President on our behalf after consulting with leadership on the President's earlier correspondence to you, which I referred to in paragraph 7 of page 8 of the votes and proceedings, on the composition of the Council of State. Mr. Speaker, as you guided leadership, we sought to get members to input, but we appreciated that the President needed to get the Council of State properly constituted in accordance with Article 89 of the Constitution. And therefore, I'm just reminding whether you want to convey to the House that you acted on behalf of the House as was guided and advised by leadership with inputs from members, and what official communication you conveyed to the President, because as we all do know, the Council of State have been formally constituted and inaugurated by the President in accordance with Article 89(2). And I do not think that there was any fundamental objection by any member of this House. Mr. Speaker, my second is what leader have observed. We have two major constitutional obligations at the beginning of this meeting, which will be the State of the Nation address in accordance with Article 67 and budget and financial statement in accordance with Article 170. All we can ask for will be cooperation of members to support you for those duties to be discharged. Mr. Speaker, we need to decide now, are we going to be meeting at 10 a.m. or at 2 p.m.? Even though I know members prefer the 10 a.m., but we should be guided because, Mr. Speaker, the Appointments Committee is still sitting. We will need a venue and some time to consider the outstanding referrals. And Mr. Speaker, as ministers get approved, it's more likely that the President will nominate deputy ministers. They would also require to go through the process. So we will have to get ready. So once again, Mr. Speaker, I wish you well, and I welcome members and wish every member well. I thank you. Understanding others which has been raised by the Honorable Okujeto, I'm sure the leader of government business is better placed to respond to it appropriately. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, since there are no more comments of the minority has already spoken, I think it's proper that the chairman of the business committee and majority leader should have first bite. So, majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa has raised a critical issue. And I agree with him that if we don't have the certainly the debate on the budget statement and economic policy cannot be well structured. Indeed, even after that, the consideration of the various sectoral questions will become difficult. So certainly we need to constitute the committees, and it's intended for the committees to be constituted. I had assumed wrongly, Mr. Speaker, that the otherwise very meticulous Okujeto Ablakwa would have read the draft business committee report. And if you had done so, you would have seen that for Thursday, the 4th, presented to this House from the Committee of Selection, which is chaired by Mrs. Speaker, the report of the Committee of Selection on the composition of the other standing and select committees. Mr. Speaker, I know the Honorable Okujeto does not suffer from optical illusion. He's incapable of suffering from optical illusion. Mr. Speaker, on a more serious note, we need to do that. And Thursday, certainly we'll get it sorted out. Mr. Speaker, the other one is the approval of the standing orders. As he himself admitted, some of us should do this. Unfortunately, there are too many issues associated with the new orders from members. Perhaps when we are finished with the consideration of the budget, with all the relevant accompaniments, members will feel subdued and then recline for us to do the consideration. Because it appears a major consideration is the consideration of the budget. And I believe you understand what I mean. So I guess when we are through with that, perhaps we may come back to the new standing orders. Or if you want to cling to the status quo, even though we've toiled for a very considerable time in the crafting of these orders, and some of us think that we should adopt it to reposition Parliament. If the generality of membership think that we should remain with the status quo, so be it. The minority leader is also right in the observation captured on the rules and proceedings that you directed that the House accordingly positions itself to be consulted by the President on the appointment of certain members of the Council of State. The Speaker, through the route of the two leaders, consultations were made with various members of Parliament, and we came to the determination that there was no opposition, and accordingly we communicated same to you, and you communicated the sentiments of the House in respect of the consultation to the President. resulted in the swearing in of the ex-official members of the Council of State alongside the elected members. So the deed is accomplished. Mr. Speaker, but I believe that going forward, the House should have a properly defined structure such that in such instances we'll be able to ferry whatever the outcome should be to the President. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Honorable members, let me assure you that I am a man of immeasurable courage and valor. And I'm not a man of little faith. And so I'll be leading the House together with the parliamentary staff to go through the process of the vaccination against COVID-19. So please don't entertain any doubts in your mind, particularly the notorious doubting Thomases. And I think we are programming to do so next week. And that is why we'll get the brief tomorrow. I should have formally communicated to you the advice that the House has given to His Excellency the President on the appointment of the members, particularly the 3 members of the Council of State. I want to do that by reading the full text of the communique to His Excellency the President, but I saw that it was not in the file. So I'll do that to the House, God willing, tomorrow. But I thank you for the reminder. Honorable members, we will take item 5, statements. I have admitted so many statements, but we'll be taking 2 today. Yes, Minority Chief Whip, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just noticed that some of our colleagues are bringing chairs into the chamber. Sure. Yes, additional chairs. We decided to arrange the chamber to observe the COVID protocol. And extra, the other colleagues could sit and observe from the office. Mr. Speaker, they are bringing more. Why are you saying no? There was only one chair here. Saying that there was only one chair here. They are bringing more. As you can see, they are bringing more. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, I had just told this side not to. They should rather go and observe from the office. But if we have decided that since we are now all negative, we are going to disregard the protocol, then let it be said. But I know that it is for a good reason that we chose to observe and members are bringing chairs. So, Mr. Speaker, I would be grateful if we could give the necessary directives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the concern raised by the Minority Chief Whip. I mean, speaking to the fact that we need to keep to social distancing, which is very critical and is important. But Speaker, let me just correct. The first Deputy Speaker's chair was just behind, and when he walked in, we realized that he had no place to sit. So for his seat, it was just brought from behind, and the first Deputy Speaker himself is here. He can confirm that. But no. So I haven't seen any extra seat being brought in. If that is the case, I'm speaking. So, Speaker, if indeed there were seats, if there were seats brought in, if there were seats brought in apart from that of the first deputy, no problem. We could correct that. But for this particular one, it was brought from behind for the first deputy speaker. And I think you are over-exaggerating the concern.
Honourable members, please, let's continue to observe the physical distancing rule. Very important. I may have to make a statement in connection with that as to how many members should be at any time be present on the floor of the House. I think we have to come out with another figure. I can wait after consulting the leaders. And so we will give direction tomorrow in respect of that. We don't expect us to crowd ourselves again. Many of you are not in privileged positions like me. And so the information I have, you don't have it about your health status in relation to COVID-19. Many of you, you don't have. Sometimes I cringe when I see some of you getting close to some of your colleagues. But I'm not in the position. I am not in the position to disclose. Yes. Yes, honourable member.
Right, Honourable Speaker.
Are you to urge me to do so? I should disclose. Is that what you want to say?
No, Mr. Speaker, you had just indicated that you gave us some numbers who are positive, who are in isolation. We were so sure all of us are safe, and suddenly you are saying that you know who has COVID and who does not. And you are scaring us.
I only stated that majority are auxiliary staff. I didn't say that no member of parliament was involved. I only said majority are auxiliary staff. Just take it as that. I will continue to be clinging. I see you. I mean, I will use the word again. But let's now move to item 5. And as I said, I will permit 2 statements to be made today. One stands in the name of Honourable Frank Anodompre, the Member of Parliament for Nsewam Aduojiri, and the Majority Chief Whip. Honourable Member, you may now make your statement. Majority Leader.
Speaker, I have reason to make an application to you. The chairman of the appointment committee is ready to present the first report of the appointment committee on the president's nominations for ministerial appointments. So I wanted us to vary the order of business, allow the first deputy speaker to make the presentation first before we go to the making of statements. If it so pleases you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman of the committee, Appointments Committee, is your report ready?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The first part is ready.
Is it ready for distribution to members now so we can lay it?
Yes, after the presentation, Mr. Speaker, to be ready for distribution.
I just want to be sure because the majority leader has sought leave of me to vary the order of business. And that comes under order 53(2). And so I'll vary the order of business and then we take item 6 first. Then we can now permit members to make the statements. So we move to at the commencement of public business. Item 6, presentation of papers. The following paper to be presented by the chairman of the committee, first report of the Appointments Committee on the President's nominations for ministerial appointments. Chairman, you may do so now.
First report of the Appointments Committee on the President's nominations for ministerial appointments.
The paper has been presented accordingly and is for distribution to all honorable members. Honorable members, we go back to item 5, statements. Honorable member for Nsawam Adwajiri may now make your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, the transition to renewable energy in Africa has accelerated impressively over the last decade, for countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa working to increase renewable energy capacity in recent years. Ghana, with its significant renewable resources and robust policy framework, cannot afford to be left behind. A well-resourced and properly constituted renewable resource authority is needed to drive Ghana's renewable agenda and support post-pandemic recovery through targeted and deliberate action. The time is now. Speaker, a report by the International Renewable Agency in 2019, and I quote, "Scaling up renewable energy development in Africa," unquote, noted that the continent is endowed with substantial renewable energy resources and it is positioned to adopt innovative, sustainable technologies and play a leading role in global action with the future of sustainable energy. Ghana is in this position as well. Several African countries have already taken the steps needed to scale up renewables. They have adopted support policies and promoted investment and regional collaboration. Countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, and South Africa have shown firm commitments towards accelerated use of modern renewable energy and are leading energy transition efforts, while some of Africa's smaller countries, including Cape Verde, Djibouti, Rwanda, and Swaziland, have also set ambitious renewable energy targets. Kenya is set to install some 1.4 gigawatts, installing almost 570 megawatts, while South Africa installs 3.9 gigawatts of renewable energy. The International Energy Agency estimates that 2/3 of the mini-grid and off-grid systems in rural areas will be powered by solar photovoltaics. small hydropower, or wind by the year 2040. Speaker, according to the Tracking SDG 7 Energy Progress Report, Nigeria had a largest electricity access deficit in terms of population globally, behind India in 2000, and the highest across all of Africa. It is no surprise that their investments are targeted at mini and off-grid renewable installations, while hydropower is the main source of renewable energy in Nigeria today. Given the risks of drought, the country is looking to diversify in energy resource mix with a strong focus on solar. Indeed, Nigeria boasts over 2,000 of sunlight per year. In fact, much higher than the global leader in solar power, Germany. To this end, over the period of 2017 and 2018, Nigeria invests $20 billion in solar power projects to boost the capacity of its national grid and reduce over-reliance on it by building mini-grids and rural areas without access to electricity. In a more recent move, in 2020, their government launched a $75 million grant to encourage off-grid solar projects, while $150 million.
Honorable Member, just a minute. Second Deputy Speaker to take the chair. You may continue.
$350 million World Bank loan is currently being used to build some 10,000 solar-powered mini-grids in rural areas. Similar to Kenya, beyond helping it reach its climate goals, boosting solar power in Nigeria will help the country bridge its large deficit gap. Speaker, Kenya is a continental and global leader in renewable energy exploitation, as these sources already contribute significantly, some 85% of the raw energy mix in the country. Largely, as a result of their utilization of geothermal and hydropower, this East African nation is already on track to meet or exceed its Paris Agreement pledge. A stated goal is to achieve 100% of renewable energy power generation by 2020, complemented by a diverse technology mix. Although hydropower contributes significantly to energy production currently, again, with the risks of drought, the government is looking to enhance solar, wind, thermal, and geothermal generation in its long-term plans. Geothermal generation specifically is expected to be prioritized over the next decade. Speaker, one of the ways in which Kenya is looking to achieve these goals is by entering into major public-private partnerships. This was demonstrated in August 2019 when the Kenyan Investment Authority and Meru country government entered into a memorandum of understanding with the global renewable energy developers to build Africa's first large-scale hybrid wind, solar PV, and battery storage projects. The Meru Country Energy Park, the park for which construction began in January 2020, will provide up to some 80 megawatts of renewable energy and consists of up to 20 wind and more than 40,000 solar panels. Power generated from the park is expected to supply over 200,000 homes. Speaker, harnessing renewable energy in Kenya will not only enable the country to meet its long-term climate goals, but will ultimately help realize its ambition of becoming a middle-income country by the end of the decade. Part part of this requires realizing universal electricity access. Its people in Kenya has made significant strides in this regard. Between 2010 and 2017, for example, Kenya was the fastest electrifying country in sub-Saharan Africa, according to tracking SDG 7 Energy Progress Report by the World Bank. This was largely driven by a last-mile electrification project targeted at informal settlement and rural communities. Speaker, renewable energy is also set to boost job creation in the country. According to a job census report by Power for All, a non-governmental organization, growth in the renewable energy sector is already having a positive spin-off, as the sector's workforce is now comparable with traditional power. Speaker, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, on February 2020, in commitment to diversifying renewables, cut out the saw to begin construction of 2 solar power plant projects at the $5 million funded by the KfW, a German development agency. The 6.5 megawatt Alora and 13 megawatt Kalio renewable project located in the Upper West region are expected to provide electricity for 15,000 in the region, in addition to helping increase the renewable energy component of the country's energy mix and contribute to the fight against the effects of climate change. Speaker, when India's National Renewable Act was drafted in 2015, the adoption of renewable energy was reported to have significantly increased, according to India's Renewable Energy Act. And since India is in fact a federal republic, their central government is most responsible for the development of renewable energy, with policy obligations of the central government permits by SHA. In conclusion, Speaker, it is obvious that there is a focus on the development of renewable energy in sub-Saharan Africa. Growth at this sector promises not only to plug the gap with regard to electricity generation, but to help the continent achieve its climate goals in the area of COVID. Setting up the Renewable Energy Authority would facilitate implementation of renewable energy's master plan, which, among other benefits, will expedite the installation of electricity. I believe that with the developments we have made in respect to robust policy framework that support renewables, we can transform our energy sector impressively if we place priority on renewable energy development. As a matter of importance, all of our tertiary and secondary institutions should be installed with solar panels. All government outfits should have solar panels. Taking all these institutions off the national grid would afford space to industry and other critical areas of the economy. It is time for us as a nation to get drastic and lead in the sub-region towards the transition of the continent using renewables. I'm grateful, Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, first of all, let me thank my good friend and brother, Honourable Frank Anodompre, the Majority Chief Whip, for such in-depth and well-researched statement before the House. Mr. Speaker, I am privileged to have been given a copy I've gone through the document and I cannot but commend him for the research and the detailed work that he has done. I'm sure that this document, if made available to the academia, would facilitate and enhance knowledge acquisition. Mr. Speaker, like you rightly said, renewable energy, which simply means energy or energy which use does not reduce the availability of that energy going forward, depending on how you use it. So if you use solar, for instance, it does not reduce. But if, like, you are cultivating woodlots, depending on how you use it, it can still be termed as renewable. That is, depending on how you draw the amount of it. Because even more importantly, in Africa, home to about 1.3 billion people, which constitutes about 13% of the world population, in sub-Saharan Africa, about 600 million people do not have access to electricity. 2 out of 3 of the total population in sub-Saharan Africa do not have access to electricity. Even more importantly, 80% of those who do not have access to electricity lives in rural areas. Mr. Speaker, more disturbing is the fact that about 100 million of those without access to electricity have the national grid passing over their villages and towns. But because of the lack of capital and investment, it's difficult to do that. Mr. Speaker, according to the African Development Bank, in Africa, the per capita consumption of energy, that is, if you were to divide the total amount of energy consumed by the population, about one individual consumes 180 kilowatt hours of electricity annually, compared to 13,000 in the United States. So whilst we consume 180, in the United States, energy consumption per capita is 13,000. Mr. Speaker, the African Development Bank estimates that for us to achieve universal access to energy in 2025, we would have to invest about $90 billion per annum in energy investments alone. Mr. Speaker, this tells us that there is a whole lot of work for us to do as a country and as a continent. In Ghana, we have projected that by 2020, 10% of our total energy mix ought to come from renewable energies. Mr. Speaker, let me clarify this. When we talk of renewable energy, you might decide to add our hydro dams or exclude our hydro dams, depending on how you want to define renewable energy. And so I just the archives and took a journal, and in the field of academia, it's only proper that you acknowledge the work that you are quoting. This is Renewable Energy Development in Ghana Beyond Potential and Commitment by Isaac Aka, and he used vector error correction model and Johansson model to model energy consumption renewables using some other variables. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to note that from the figures, thermal energy accounts for about 60% of our total energy consumption. Hydro, which I said you ought to distinguish, accounts for about 40%. But solar, which is the main renewable energy, accounts for 0.2% of the energy mix in Ghana. It tells us that there's a lot of work for us to do. Because the world over, people are shifting towards renewable energy. In fact, Norway has divested its about 2 billion or 6 billion investment fund away from non-renewable sources. China, since 2014, spent so much on renewables, and the curve has even turned in terms of renewable usage. So what are we doing as a country to be ahead of when all major policies around the world seem to be focusing on renewables? Because today, there are even renewable funds that we can tap into in consultation with IRENA, in consultation with IEA, in consultation with so many other agencies. And there are 5 key areas when it comes to renewables. You are talking of solar energy, wind energy, hydro or thermal, geothermal, and biomass. The time has come for us to make progress in terms of our renewable energy improvements. Let me also acknowledge that some work has been done. Because in 2011, we passed the Renewable Energy Act. Before the NDC left office, I recall that we had finished the VRA plant around Navrongo, and then a mine energy plant. We're virtually done with it. We had even started some testing of about a 20 megawatt facility. I'm aware that under my good friend, Mr. Peter Amewu, who is seated right opposite me in that beautiful white kaftan, also did his part. But Mr. Speaker, in order not to take too much time, because I do know that my colleagues may also be interested in contributing, I think that we ought to look at policy. We ought to look at taking away the bottlenecks, because some of the renewable components, even today, when they are imported, they are taxed. Countries, all those renewable components are identified and given some tax-free element. Admittedly, the cost of solar has gone down tremendously. If you look at when solar was developed to today, it's just about 25% of the original cost. Technology has also improved. The battery technology, they are now moving into lithium batteries and other battery technologies, which enables a lot more of that energy to be stored. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I can only thank my good and brother, the Majority Chief Whip, Honorable Frank Anodom-Preh, for this impressive and well-researched statement before this House. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support a statement made by my good friend, Honorable Frank Anodom-Preh, for the aggressive call on government to establish a Renewable Energy Authority. Mr. Speaker, as said by the earlier speakers, the need for renewable energy as a proportion of our energy mix can no longer be taken for granted. Today, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that Ghana is currently the vice chair of ARENA in its 11th sitting held from the 18th to 21st January 2020. Mr. Speaker, Global Fund these days find it very difficult to attract conventional energy. Even as we see today in the rising period of oil, there is lack of funding for new development. This is a result of governments across the world and countries' aggressive nature to migrate away from conventional fuel. We've all been part of the climate change, and the impact of this climate change has had significant effects in both developing and developed countries. It is on that note that, Mr. Speaker, movement away from fuel to renewable energy is now a reality. Unfortunately, as a country, the high cost of renewables makes it very difficult for most emerging countries to attract renewable as a proportion of their energy mix. What needs to be done, therefore, is that government must decide that I want renewable. And if government says I want renewable, somebody must be prepared to consume it. In most regimes, we have what we call the renewable certificate obligation, which mandates fossil fuel producers to have certain proportions of renewable in their energy mix. As government begins to look for an aggressive strategy to establish the Renewable Energy Authority, I think it will be a call of us as lawmakers of this country to see how we can come up with credible policies that will trigger some element of binding rules on productions of fossil fuel to have some proportions of renewable as part of their global production. The agenda for the country, Mr. Speaker, was to end of the current renewable energy by the year 2020. As rightly pointed out by my very good friend, the portion of renewable energy today in our energy mix remains far less than 0.5%. Reasons for this has already been attributed as a result of the high cost. If the agenda of adding an additional 10% by 2030 to our energy policy is something to go by, then there is a need for aggressive subsidy for providers of renewable. Government recently has embarked aggressively on solar panels for off-grid areas. The rationale for the solar panels has been done in Ghana is to minimize the cost of losses that are done through high transmission losses. By embedded generations, government is able to resolve that cost. As government demonstrations of the use of renewable in the energy mix, Jubilee House currently, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce, is about 60 to 70% completion on firing on renewable energy by solar panels. Mr. Speaker, governments must therefore begin to look for alternatives of the fossil fuel. And if the cost alternative will also exist, then as a country, because of the enormous employment opportunities that renewable energy will give to the country, the call for establishment of Renewable Energy Authority is in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, it is on that note that I congratulate the earlier speakers, especially the framer of today's statement, calling on government to speed up the process of establishing Renewable Energy Authority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Elembele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Let me thank the maker of the statement for a very important statement on renewable energy, and especially the call on the establishment of Renewable Energy Authority. Mr. Speaker, Ghana was very aggressive earlier, and let me make sure that we correct the record. Sometimes we are too hard on ourselves. A lot of the African countries that have been cited are doing a lot in renewable energy area, are focusing a lot on hydro. But let me say that if we count our hydro endowments as part of renewables in the current sense, we are over 30%. But that's not what we are looking at. We are looking renewable penetration with solar and really the local sources, the traditional sources. Mr. Speaker, in 2011 we passed the Renewable Energy Act. There were three major provisions that we call for in that act. I'm very happy that Mr. Young, Deputy Minister, was given a chance to come to this House to push it. Mr. Speaker, there was a requirement for feed-in tariffs, and the responsibility was on the PURC and Energy Commission. The renewable energy purchase obligation was in there. The feed-in tariff rate was proposed, a connection to transmission system, and these were going to really propel the private sector and give them a clear leeway to go forward. The second important provision in that Renewable Energy Act, Mr. Speaker, was the Renewable Energy Fund. It was critical because even as we pushed to have universal access to electricity, we knew that off-grid communities, remote areas, island communities would necessarily need support to make sure they are all connected through renewable sources, and they needed to be funded. Mr. Speaker, if we want to know how serious we have been, look at the last 5 to 6 years on our budget we bring to this House. 2 years ago, I was talking about the budget, and the only provisions in there support, financial support for renewable energy, African Development Bank. And so you ask the question, how committed are we on renewable energy? There's a lot we must do to make sure we move where the world is, the issue of climate change and the call for us to really move in that direction. Mr. Speaker, there has to be a lot of incentives. We put a lot of incentives, tax exemption regime in the Renewable Energy Act. But it is not enough to really attract private sector. And so really the big elephant in the room when it comes to renewable energy has to do with cost. It is really not attractive for the private sector to invest. And so as we discuss this very important matter, we must go back to the basics and ask the question, what must be done to attract private sector investment in renewable energy? It's very critical. Mr. Speaker, but importantly, the maker of the statement brought a very important point. In the renewable energy, it was envisioned that the renewable energy department at the Ministry of Energy will be a transition office. And then over time, we will have a renewable energy authority that will solely focus on the renewable energy and drive it. And I think that I agree with the Speaker that maybe it is time for us to look at it. Now, my point is that even as we push for the establishment of the Renewable Energy Authority, it goes beyond that. We must look at other alternatives. We must look at the issue of funding. We must look at the things that we must do to attract private sector interest in pushing renewable energy. It is important that government must also really focus on renewable energy when it comes to our budgets. We can't simply rely on German benevolence and African development and others, because the reality is that almost all critical communities in rural areas and island communities will not let us as a country. If they do not have light, we don't get universal access, and the only way they will get light is through renewable energy sources. So it's very, very critical. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm agreeing with the maker of the statement that renewable energy is critical. We have all the endowment, we have all the resources. It is time we focus on it. But more importantly, we establish an authority that will drive it. But we should not think that establishing the authority is enough. We have a lot of authorities in the country. But we must do that, making sure that we invest. I thank the maker of the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member for, is it Canada? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I also like to commend the maker of the statement, the Honorable Anodompre, for such a comprehensive statement calling for the establishment of a Renewable Energy Authority. This is also timely because of the debate going on around the world, for the world to move towards cleaner energy sources, the so-called energy transition. Mr. Speaker, global consumption of renewable energy between 2018 and 2015 is expected to grow rapidly at 3.1%, against the consumption of petroleum by coal by 0.4%, and natural gas by 1.1%. What this means is that the world is moving towards cleaner energy, and Ghana cannot be left behind. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have done a lot so in terms of the deployment of renewable energy. In fact, apart from the projects that have been completed, there are two major projects the Blue Authority has embarked on. We also have another renewable energy project as part of the Palugu project. When these projects are completed, Ghana will be leading in Africa in terms of renewable energy penetration as far as utility scale renewable. So these are bold steps the government of Ghana with its private sector partners have already taken towards the rapid deployment of renewable energy in Ghana. There was a statement on hydro, the fact that other countries consider hydro as part of their renewable. We haven't considered that in Ghana. It has been the convention that any hydro project below 100 megawatt capacity should be considered renewable, and those above 100 megawatt are not renewable. And this is that has followed. And this is the reason we have not added Akosombo, Pong, and then Bui to our hydro, our renewable figures. In fact, Mr. Speaker, our total hydro potential in Ghana is about 2,500 megawatts, of which 1,600 megawatts have already been developed. The rest, 900 megawatts, are mini hydro resources scattered across the country. And developing them as standalone projects has been very expensive. In fact, the levelized cost of developing these mini hydro resources is quite expensive to the extent that both the government and the private sector have not invested in these mini hydro resources. This is why we have not aggressively pursued the development of mini hydro to add to the menu of renewable energy projects that we have in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the government has recently taken some major decisions towards the deployment of renewable energy. Number one is competitive procurement of renewable energy capacity. This will ensure that we have competitive pricing for renewable. As we have heard earlier, the economics of renewable energy is going down, cost is going down. But those that we have procured, because we procured them under the fee, always continue to be very high in prices. And therefore, if we deploy them now, consumers will not be able to afford that. This is the reason the government has adopted a competitive procurement policy. And I am very happy that this House supported the government through amendments to the Renewable Energy Act. We also support the scale-up of net metering to encourage domestic rooftop system. And also we've expanded the mandate of BU Authority to incubate renewable energy. This was considered a least cost option as opposed to the establishment of a renewable energy authority. But given that renewable is going to take the center stage in the future energy of all countries around the world, and the fact that we need to regulate the renewable energy space, and the fact that we need to encourage private sector participation aggressively in the renewable energy space, we may have to consult the authority in future to incubate and harness all the renewable energy potential that we have in Ghana towards also joining the transition the world is moving towards. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member. Leadership.
Mr. Speaker, if you may indulge me, on leadership, I want to yield the opportunity to the Honorable Edward Bauer to conclude on behalf of our leadership, if you so indulge me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to the statement that was ably made by the MP for Edward, Honorable Anodopre. I would also want to commend him for a well-researched statement. But to start with, first and foremost, I need to clearly state, I think that the previous leader, speaker, Honorable Boy, indicated that if you look at the figures that were given by in the statement, it was based on those countries and the type of the definition for renewable energy. If you were to look clearly in our country, as we speak today, if you were to take Akosombo, take Bui, and take Pong, and consider them as renewable, because they are renewables, our figures will be far higher than the 0.2 that we have today as the percentage in our energy or generation mix. That being said, there has always been a reason why we have deliberately decided to limit the definition of renewable energies in Ghana to mini hydros and, of course, wind, solar, and what have you. It is a way to encourage us to see that on the basis of the mix, we will need. And so it is important that we understand the rationale behind the definition of renewable energy as a people, or maybe as a country.
The second point I need to clearly indicate has to do with our, the target that we have set for ourselves. If you were to look at the energy policy that was approved somewhere around 2010, it was then that we set that by the end of 2020, we should have, in terms of our energy mix, renewable energy, which is purely mini hydros and then solar and then what called wind and what have you, that we should have at least 10% by the close of 2020. It is clear to everybody that as a country we have not met this target. There has been that debate between environmental issues that we will have to address and the need to have energy as a country. You do not have a luxury of having to contemplate that in the course of all the mix that you have, you will want to concentrate in terms of investment towards renewable energy. Because if we have to industrialize, for any country, whether it is in the West, whether it is in the East, where have you, they started with conventional fuels to be able to sustain the economy, then gradually phase off those particular conventional fuels, such as fossil fuels such as crude and then diesel. That being said, it is important that now we take a second look as to how we go on in terms of investments. I do know very clearly that the government, as we speak now, has placed a ban on just the signing of new PPAs because of the burden it gives to the major off-taker of the energy sector, that is ECG, and how they manage these particular PPAs. But is it possible, as a matter of strategy, and as a matter of trying to see how we can improve in terms of the renewable energy component of our generation mix, to even begin to start contemplating the existing thermal generators, their track record, and whether with the best and the competitive tariff, whether we could encourage them to begin to add as part of their generation mix that renewable energy. It is important to look at this because a total ban on just PPAs, because of the overburden on ECG, and of course the whole debate of excess capacity, may retard our progress in trying to meet the target of 10% of the generation mix. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to let, as a country, to begin to start looking at actually what our percentage is. The 0.2% we have been speaking about, one of the things we have not considered is the fact that if you were to look at the island communities, those that are off-grid communities, as a country, whether it is the NPP, the NDC, there has been a deliberate attempt to hook them to upgrade renewable energy solutions. Have we as a country been able to quantify that and know the component and the percentage of that in terms of contributing towards the generation mix? Because if you look at our calculations that we do, most often than not, it is purely based on what we now have in terms of the grid solutions. For example, you take the Navrongo 2.0, 2.5 megawatts, capacity that we have there. So maybe as a country, we must begin to start calculating to see the off-grid solutions we have given to those island communities. Yeah, of course. those island communities, how we are going to incorporate that in terms of our calculation of the energy mix. Mr. Speaker, it is also important for the country to begin to start looking at the fact that as a country, we must begin to help and work with the real estate, industry. That when you are putting up a housing facility, that there should be some level of subsidy extended to you for you to incorporate in terms of the lighting purposes or maybe the energy requirements of that particular the buildings you are putting up, the issue of solar energy. If we do that, gradually what we'll be doing is that in terms of household consumption, we'll be moving our citizens from the use of direct power from the grid and working purely in trying to make sure that the grid power that we have could be used for industries and what have you. This is exactly what we need to do. And I believe that as a policy, we must first be frank with ourselves. That one, yes, as we speak today, environmental issues are key, but it's also important to know that we need to gradually phase out the conventional fuels. But in doing that, that there must be incentive in bringing investors, and it can start first with the existing generators, seeing how, based on their track record, how they can expand and add renewable energy component to their generation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Majority.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my colleague will take the opportunity to speak on this matter as we've yielded to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me congratulate the maker of the statement and appreciate my senior colleagues who have supported this statement as well. Indeed, it is about time, and it came in at the right time. Mr. Speaker, let me also use this opportunity to commend His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo for his commitment to the renewable energy in this country. The Speaker, indeed, the former Energy Minister stated it, that the seat of government have installed over $1 million solar energy facility, and therefore is off the national grid. It shows the commitment of the President in ensuring that solar energy becomes part of this country. Also, it is important to commend the Bui Power Authority. They are in the process of constructing over $40 million solar energy project. Indeed, when it comes to stream, it may become the biggest in West Africa. And therefore, we need to commend the President supporting all this initiative. I must say that as we commending our government, it is important to note that the renewable energy sector has its own challenges. Indeed, the Ministry of Energy, in their Renewable Energy Master Plan, Mr. Speaker, stated some few challenges, of which we believe, if I may go over them. Indeed, barriers to renewable energy development in Ghana, they stated challenging investment climate, they stated uncertainty of available resources, limited technological capacity, insufficient experience in renewable energy development, human and socio-cultural challenges, and information and awareness barriers. Mr. Speaker, in view of this, the maker of the statement pointed to the fact that we need to tackle this issue, and we will need the authority to help us tackle this issue. Indeed, they went further to say some opportunities that are available. If you go into the Renewable Master Plan, they said by 2030, if it comes to mainstream, we are going to have over 200,000 jobs being created, and over 11 million tons of carbon will be saved. Indeed, Ghana contributes over 30 million, and this was in our third convention, UN Framework Convention Climate Report, which was signed by my senior colleague who is not here today, Honorable Muhammad Yaga, when he was then the Minister for Science and Environment. I therefore believe that, Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement has drawn attention that it is about time that Ghana gets this authority to be able to streamline these activities to enhance our renewable energy resources. All the supporters of this statement have come to consensus that, as a house, we need to put ourselves together to be able to ensure that the Renewable Act is enforced, and if possible, go further to enhance this act. I want to use the opportunity to commend the maker of the statement again and say, well done, a very good statement. And if you leave, Mr. Speaker, I believe you will help us chart a path that will enhance the resources, the renewable resources in Ghana. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, there is a second statement that stands in the name of a member for Atebubu Amandi, Honorable Sanja Nanja, on perennial water crisis in Atebubu Township and its environs. Honorable member, you may take the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the member is not currently on the floor. Probably it has not been communicated to him because we did not know the number of statements admitted by Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the member is currently not on the floor. Thank you.
Speaker, unfortunately, I wasn't at the preceding briefing, so I don't know of the sequence of statements that have been submitted to the Speaker. So if you have instructions from the Speaker to admit any other in the order of acceptance, you may allow that. Other than that, we may have to adjourn.
Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Speaker made indication that a statement submitted by Honorable Ladi has also been admitted when we were in the pre-sitting. I'm not sure if that is the, if we have it, that we can allow her to take her statement, because her statement has been admitted. In fact, when we came back to the floor, I even informed her that her statement will be taken. But if not, then we will have to go by the proposal from the majority leader. Thank you.
Honorable members, we don't have any other statement apart from these two statements. So may I take directions from leadership?
Speaker, unfortunately, I really couldn't hear you. Communication through the mask is a difficulty to hear. So, Mr. Speaker, if Mr. Speaker, that's the reason why I said that I wasn't at the preceding briefing. The Speaker indicated that he was going to allow for two statements, which is why I asked that if you have instructions from him to accept the other one in the sequence, then you may allow it. Otherwise, if the instructions are strict, that it is just the two of them, then you may adjourn.
Right, honorable members, like I said earlier on, Speaker only admitted two statements, and the earlier one has been discussed. The second one is a member for Atebubu Amanten. So we don't have any other statement in front of me.
Speaker, in that case, we can take an adjournment. And as we indicated to ourselves, tomorrow to meet at 10 o'clock in the forenoon, sharp.
I'm not sure whether it's a motion that he's moving, but if it's a motion, then I second the motion for adjournment to 10 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you.
The House is accordingly suspended. We adjourn it. The House is hereby adjourned till tomorrow 10 a.m.